Hello and welcome to this special edition of Young Turks. I'm Shereen Bhan. AI and generative AI in specific continue to be the buzzwords. Many surveys suggesting that CEOs at this point in time are looking at adoption of AI and generative AI, but there is no consensus on the metrics that will be used to measure success or return on investment. To talk about the Infosys strategy for AI and generative AI in specific, what it could potentially mean as far as deal value is concerned, revenue contribution, M&A. Joining us now is Salil Parekh. Salil, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us on CNBC-TV18. We haven't spoken to you since the earnings, but you know, as I pointed out, look at what's happened with NVIDIA overnight. Performance which is standout, blowout, and we get you on a day to talk about the AI opportunity. So let's speak about Infosys in specific. At the end of your earnings call, you spoke about how the company has generated 3 million lines of code using LLMs. You called it industry leading. Give me a status check on where things currently stand as far as Infosys' AI strategy is concerned.
So thanks, Shereen, for having me here. Always good to be here. On generative artificial intelligence, that's really a completely new way of looking at things. What it's doing is basically manufacturing intelligence, whether it's tokens or whether it's assistants or whether it's agents. So that example of the lines of code is something that was created by large language models that we train on very narrow sets of data for specific large organizations and also for internal. So this is something extremely exciting with our clients. It's different from what's going on in the consumer world. So this is for large organizations. In the consumer world is what you're seeing and what you just mentioned with some of the examples. In large organizations, the work is really focused on how do we connect with customers better, how do we make things more efficient, and that's where generative AI is starting to help.
You know, Salil, as you pointed out, it is still small, but you believe that the opportunity is going to expand as you move along. Now, what could this 200 become over the next 3 to 5 years? You're currently working on 200 projects. Give me the kind of headroom that you see for potential growth. Also, quantify for us, you know, in terms of the revenue expected by the work that you're doing as far as these specific generative AI projects are concerned. You know, what could that potential deal pipeline look like for you as well as revenue?
So there, we have not shared externally things in the nature of the metrics you're mentioning. What we anticipate in terms of opportunity is, as the economic environment changes, both for cost efficiency, but also for customer connect growth, generative AI is going to be more and more spreading in large organizations. Now, the thing with large organizations is, there's a coexistence of technologies over the years. You probably well know that there are many large organizations that are still using COBOL. So we have everything from COBOL to generative AI that's going to work in the mix, and that's where we are very good with our AI-first approach, making sure all of that is moving to the new areas.
Oh, you know, I understand, Salil, that you haven't given us any indication of the revenue expected on account of the projects that you're working on generative AI, or in fact the deal pipeline that you have the ambition to pursue. But I still want to understand, what are the metrics, for instance, that you will use to measure success or use to measure return on investment? You know, if you could share that with us, and this is not specific only to Infosys, because many surveys of CEOs at this point in time do indicate that everyone is grappling with this. How do you measure the generative AI adoption and the KPIs associated with that? So what are the KPIs that you're looking at to measure success?
So for us, it's really in terms of the objectives, it's where the impact is. So there's impact we see with our clients in how they connect with their customers, what they're doing with their employees, and how they're optimizing their operations. And for each of those, there are benefit metrics, whether it's an improved time to market, a better level of connect with customer, a much more efficient, therefore less costly process. And those are the sorts of metrics our clients are looking at. Today, the discussion on generative AI, at least in the broad world, is much more oriented on what individuals' use of generative AI is. Our intention and focus, because of our business, is much more with what large organizations are doing. And there's a very specific way that we've developed where we see now many of the clients looking at more carefully this approach on looking at the data within a client organization. The foundational blocks really to make anything work with generative AI within a large organization, first is data, making sure both the structured data and unstructured data and social media is properly analyzed and captured. And the second is the cloud, where you need that level of infrastructure, whether it's public cloud or private cloud, that helps to leverage it. And we are now, through our digital move over the last few years, very strong on both cloud and data, and that's helping us as we connect with our clients.
Salil, let me address this question a little differently, and I'll pick up on a note that HSBC has put out, which asks the question if generative AI will actually be deflationary over the medium term. And it says that, a decent share of revenue for Indian IT comes from low to medium complexity coding. So there is a potential threat from generative AI as it looks at to automate part of this work. How do you respond now to something like that? You've talked about the opportunity, but it's also being seen as a potential threat for the Indian IT services sector.
So for us, what we are seeing is it's opening up newer areas where we can deploy generative AI. So the example I gave you of the credit or of the telco, these are things which could have been done with a lot of effort, but with generative AI, it becomes much simpler and much less error-prone to do. So we are seeing an expansion of that opportunity set that's available, and then we're seeing productivity benefits. For example, even in the way software engineering is done, we see benefits of productivity there, where we will see efficiency used to allow people to do different things. So at this stage, given it's a small size within our business, we don't see a big change, but we are seeing both types of work at least show up from our client organizations.
Salil, generative AI, as you have pointed out several times through the course of our conversation, still nascent and small piece of the pie that you're looking at. But if I were to ask you, and this is what we heard from TCS, they said that the AI pipeline is actually doubled to 900 million. Could you give us an indication of where things currently stand for Infosys?
So there, my view, first, we don't share a pipeline view outside of our overall large deals number, which is our focus. But what we are seeing, we were a few quarters ago doing things which were more like proof of concepts. Today, these are actual projects with clients where they're seeing the benefit. And that's a huge change. And we see every client discussion a combination of that. Now, when you look at AI, there are things to keep in mind. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is something we've been using for a very long time. What we are referring to in this new change, this manufacturing of intelligence, is generative AI. So if there are discussions on metrics, we want to be clear as and when we share them, it's more focused on generative AI.
No, I get that. I'm still trying to extract a number from you, at least a ballpark number from you. But, Salil, you talked about how 6 to 8 people or 6 to 8 employees at Infosys today are being trained on generative AI. So I also want to understand from you what this eventually means as far as your hiring trend is concerned. Because if I were to look at, what has happened on hiring at this point in time, down about 7.6%, almost 8% for the quarter, declining by a little over 26,000. So what is the hiring strategy going to be? I know that you've said that it will be driven by agility, but what does that mean both in terms of the kind of people that you hire, what you do on campuses, and the number of people that you intend to hire going forward?
So there, Shereen, it's a combination of various parameters. So one, as of course you know, over the last several quarters, the economic environment has been slowing, and we've seen a lot of the digital transformation work slowing down. Most of what we are seeing in terms of large programs are cost programs, efficiency programs, automation, and consolidation of partners, those sort of programs. And that's the reason where we've seen less work on the digital transformation side. Now, the point with generative AI is much more on what we see as a trend in large organizations over the course of time. What we think in terms of hiring, as we see the changes, as interest rates come off or the inflationary environment comes off, and we see the economic environment where large organizations are starting to spend on digital programs, transformation program, we will see that starting to come back.
So at this point in time, you're not seeing any visible signs, any incipient signs of a pickup as far as digital transformation projects are concerned. And, again, I come back to the hiring question. Attrition has been about, 12% for you. Utilization continues to be around 82 to 84%. So what is the hiring trend going to be for you in the foreseeable future?
So there, we have what you described earlier, quite an agile hiring model where we go to campus, but we also recruit campus graduates through the quarters, and that will continue. We also recruit lateral hires in, that will continue. And as we see the discretionary work or the digital transformation work starting to come back, more and more of that will come through. We've not at this stage given the annual target of hiring, but we are remaining agile as we see changes happening in the environment to make sure that we are ready to support our clients for that.
But do you see the absolute number being lower, significantly lower, given not just the economic environment, but also the benefits accruing from higher productivity and so on and so forth?
I think, again, because these are two different factors, the generative AI piece or productivity piece is on a small footprint today in terms of what we are doing with it. The economic environment is what was driving a lot of the digital transformation work, and even some of the discretionary spends, and by different industry was at different stages. As we commented at the results time, the discretionary spend, we've not seen a change at the end of Q4 or at the start of Q1. So we will wait and see how that plays out. And based on that, we will see what the environment for recruiting is and what the environment in the future is for digital transformation.
Salil, you talked about discretionary spend, and you said that at this point in time it looks like pretty much around the same levels. But are there any optimistic signals that you're picking up from clients at this point in time? Because while geopolitical tensions are escalating, the U.S. markets and the U.S. economy continues to be strong, continues to be buoyant. So are you picking up any indications from clients on doubling down perhaps, or picking up the pace as far as discretionary spends are concerned?
So there, one of the comments we made again during the earnings time, which holds, generally the discretionary spends approach looks similar at the end of Q4, start of Q1. We'd also said on financial services, we see a little bit more activity than we'd seen in Q4. And the same thing is visible to us today. That, coupled with what we see people working across the board on cost efficiency, and then in a smaller way with generative AI, is what we see as the outlook today.
Okay, speaking of outlook, let's talk about M&A. You did an acquisition in the engineering services space for $450 million. Potential M&A targets, will you be looking at GenAI capabilities much more, given the fact that that continues to be an ambition that you want to bolster? Explain to me what will drive the M&A strategy for you from here on.
So there, we have done a phenomenal acquisition in engineering services. Actually, we did two, a smaller one and a larger one. Both are very strong. The larger one focused on automotive work This is a company from Germany, but working across the world. It's an exciting space. We already have a very large business in engineering services, and we see good traction for growth. We will continue to do this. Environment is a good environment for us to look at acquisitions. We continue to have a strong balance sheet. We generated 2.9 billion of free cash last financial year. So we are well set for that. We're looking more in spaces which are related to that. So for example, we look at engineering services, we look at some other SaaS areas, we look at geographies as well. There are various geographies around the world which are doing well, and we're looking at those as a expanding footprint. On generative AI, there is not so many companies which are doing services, so there's not so many areas to look at it, but if something comes, we will of course look at that.
You know, Salil, you said that this is a good environment to go shopping, and you are looking at acquisitions, to add to your capabilities as well as enhance your geographical penetration. Are we likely to see, deals close in this financial year? Are things looking hot on some potential targets that you are looking at this point in time? And what's the appetite in terms of size?
So there, again, as you've seen over the last several years, we've done small acquisitions which have done very well for us. This one is a similar one, slightly larger. We are open to doing things which are in that type of a size range. There's a lot of discussions, but with acquisitions, you never know till a lot of the parameters come together, including a cultural fit. So it's like difficult to predict what it'll look like, but we are definitely in several discussions and keeping an open eye given the macro environment for acquisitions.
Okay, an open eye on acquisitions, but let's also talk about large deals, Salil. Robust at 17.7 billion the last quarter, up 80% year on year. And you hope that the benefits of that will accrue to you in FY25 as well. How confident do you feel about building on that momentum?
Well, that's going phenomenally well. So what that does is it gives us a very strong foundation for this financial year. It was the largest of large deal values that we've had. A net new, or the new part of it, not just renewals, was very high. And most of those deals were on cost and efficiency. There were some on digital, but mostly cost and efficiency. And so that is the sort of market environment we're seeing. What that means is we believe we are very well positioned to work with clients, even when they want to consolidate partners and they want to look at cost and efficiency, because we have automation, lean, which has been working extremely well. And now you add a little bit of the productivity part of generative AI, that gives an added boost to the whole business. So we feel strongly the pipeline is on cost and efficiency pretty good, and we will continue to see good traction on that.
Okay, a quick word in on margins as well. Salil, the margin guidance stands at between 20 to 22%. But if I could borrow from TCS and ask you to give us a margin beacon, for the medium to long term, what could we expect, especially with all the changes that you're bringing about, not just in terms of cost optimization, but also in terms of the opportunities that you see?
So there, I think you talk about a very critical part of our business. We launched a margin program inside the company about a year ago, and last financial year we already see strong traction. It's got 5 different areas focused on. Within that, there are 20 initiatives. Each of those are moving well. So we feel very comfortable with where that program is, and that will support our underlying margin ambition. In terms of the beacon, as you know, we don't have a view that we share externally beyond the financial year, but we have very high ambitions inside to keep on working on that margin program as we go through the next several years.
Well, I know that you haven't held out a number, but since you talk about having a very high ambition on the back of the work that's already being done, give me a range. What is the kind of ambition that you have set for yourself internally? What could that potentially look like? I'm not holding you down to a guidance, but what's the ambition?
So internally, we will not share the number externally, but internally we have these levers and the way this program is working. Our CFO Jayesh is driving it personally, and we have buy-in and drive from a top leadership in making this happen. So my feeling is that this is going to give us a good set of results over the next several years.
Well, speaking of results and that guidance that you've been held at, Salil, we're pretty much through the half of 2024, and you, of course, have a grip and a pulse check on what's happening with your clients at this point in time. The possibility of being able to deliver on the or better on the guidance held out, is that looking likely at this point in time?
So there on the guidance, we are very clear with the guidance was 1% to 3% on a constant currency basis, the growth. We will, of course, relook at the guidance at the quarterlies at the end of it, so we'll come to it in a few weeks. But at this stage, we confirm the guidance at 1 to 3%.
What gives you comfort or what gives you confidence today, Salil? We are, of course, talking about many of the uncertainties that continue to prevail, as well as some of the headwinds. But where do you see the tailwinds at this point in time that could perhaps get you to review your guidance higher?
So what gives us comfort for the 1 to 3% guidance really is one, the large deals, which was really exceptional. So that gives us a foundation. Second, we see the discretionary spend has remained about the same, which has not become worse, which gives us some comfort. It's not changed to positive, but it's the same level at the end of Q4, start of Q1. And then a little bit on financial services that we saw the movement to a small, better movement, which gives us a positive. And finally, generative AI, where we've completely transformed the company. So as that starts to pick up, whenever that happens in our revenue, that gives us some support.
So again, and I know that you're probably not going to give me a number, but when do you expect that inflection point to be, when you start to see the work that you're doing on generative AI kick in as far as revenues are concerned?
So that, Shereen, is not that easy to have a date on, because there's a lot of global factors that will play into it. Essentially, when will large organizations start to spend on digital programs again? And that part of that will be spent on generative AI transformation program. Right now there is early projects which are small projects. So it's difficult to say when that will happen, but we know that all of these are cycles, and as the cycle plays out, we will start to see some benefits.
Salil, you said that Infosys is transforming itself to be future ready, to be ready for a world where generative AI becomes much more significantly adopted, that is. In line with that transformation, what about management structure? What about people coming in, especially at the senior level? You saw a plethora of senior level exits. Are you looking at bringing more people on board? Are you looking at changing structure in keeping with the kind of transformation that you envisage?
So there, we've been extremely fortunate. We've had a really strong leadership team. So we have all of our leadership positions filled with people from internal movements. And it's quite unique if you look at what we have. We have individuals in the leadership team who work with Infosys for 15, 20, 25 years. In fact, yesterday we celebrated someone who's finished 20 years in the leadership team. 2 weeks ago, it was 25 years. These are people who have worked with each other through those years. And a company like ours, in an industry like ours, is very international in different places. So that ability to work as one Infosys, to know each other, makes a huge difference. And I think it's a big differentiator with anyone else who has to build teams by hiring from 6 different companies at different levels. And that is something that's maybe not well appreciated, but for us a huge advantage. And we think that's a benefit that we are playing out pretty nicely.
Salil, before I let you go, I want to come back again to the jobs issue and to the workforce issue, because many companies at this point in time, you can call it right-sizing, downsizing, reorganizing, so on and so forth. And many are using AI or generative AI as perhaps the reasons for why they believe that they are right-sizing, downsizing, reorganizing. Is Infosys looking at that? Is that a possibility at all at this point in time?
No, we are not doing any of that. In fact, others in the industry have done that. We've been very clear that that's not the approach we are taking. In fact, my own view is for large organizations, all technologies will coexist. We at Infosys are very strong in generative AI, and over the next several years, we'll have more and more people joining us who become experts in generative AI, and we will be serving the world's large organizations. So for us, the ongoing view is an expansion, both over years with clients and with the number of employees.
Well, I look forward to hearing numbers from you in terms of what that transformation will finally result in, and also the work that you're doing on generative AI, when that is expected to kick in as far as revenue contribution is concerned, and how much. But Salil Parekh, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC-TV18 with a deep dive into Infosys' AI strategy as well as the outlook for the sector going forward. We will take a break here on CNBC-TV18, but a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment with more.